What is that for? You ever seen that? Oil. Maybe it's a coolant reservoir? That's weird. So here's the formula that they used to put this bike together. They took a pretty small engine. A 200cc single cylinder is a pretty small engine. However, the fun, that's what they're known for. Like they're just known, their thing was making small engines, way before they were making motorcycles. They took a small engine, and before they were putting them in kind of ugly bikes, let's be honest. But then they're like, let's make a cool looking cafe bike. If you ask 9 out of 10 people who don't ride, and like, hey, what type of bike do you want to get? I want a cafe bike. They all saying cafe bikes. That's the trend. Maybe 15 years ago, they were all saying choppers. I don't know. But the past 10 years, they're all saying cafe bikes. Right, Colton? That's what you want, right? Cafe bike? She's shaking his head. So if you can't put a fast motor, if you can't put a big motor in a cool looking bike, it's not that bad to put a small motor in a cool looking bike. But all people really care about is it cool looking? What most riders care about is it cool looking? Let me correct that. What most new riders should care about is it cool looking? Now the next thing I'm about to say is somewhat, you might question me on this one, but I'm telling you the truth. What I like about this bike is that it's only 20 horsepower. Hold on, I know what you're saying, you're like, Sean, only 20 horsepower? Look around. You generally surround yourself with some pretty fast motorcycles. That's true, however, when a friend comes by or someone who's learning how to ride, hey Sean, let's go ride some bikes. What should we ride? Well, you're not riding this. You're not riding that. You're not riding that. You're not riding that. Like, what do I really have to let a new rider ride? But if I had a couple of these, it's the perfect bike that someone could jump on and not get themselves in trouble. And this is what, there's qualifications for an entry-level motorcycle. One, is it light? It should feel pretty light. It should feel light in your hands. If it's too heavy, if you get a 100-pound person jumping on my big Harley over there, they're gonna get intimidated, they're gonna drop it, they're gonna get hurt themselves, they're not gonna wanna ride it anymore. This bike weighs 330 pounds. Yes. This bike weighs 330 pounds. That's about 200 pounds lighter than a Triumph Bonneville. So it's a pretty light bike. It's gonna feel pretty comfortable in almost anyone's hands. The other thing is if it's too powerful. Now you don't want it to be like completely underpowered where you can't, you don't move at all. But to give you an anecdote example, the first motorcycle I ever had was a 1960 something Gorelli moped. And outside the little VIN sticker, it said how much horsepower it was. It was 1 horsepower. I think it was actually 3/4 horsepower, but I'm gonna exaggerate up for 1 horsepower. And it probably weighed like 150 pounds. This is double the weight, 20x the horsepower. On that little moped, it was fun. I had fun. I could do 25 to 30 miles an hour on flat. I could put a girl in the back. We could do 20 miles an hour. So think about what this much more horsepower. I mean, this thing can do 75 miles. I think it claims 80. I think I might have done 80 on this thing once. But what I was doing was I was streamlining myself like this on the highway and getting really low. And I think I hit just over 80. But on normal highways, you'd be fine. 65, 70, no problem. The other perfect thing about an entry-level bike is it's easy to ride. It's comfortable. It's not like you're riding, like the worst entry-level bikes or big old choppers or like a race bike that just really is not very comfortable to ride. It's just comfortable, but it's easy. It's lightweight. The ergonomics are good for an entry-level bike. Sometimes when you're walking a bike around and the bikes don't turn very much like this, it's tough for a new rider to kind of get used to that. This was easy to ride. All the new guys at the shop been jumping on this bike, really enjoying it. But what's really interesting about this motorcycle is how it's pushing against the normal dealership model. As far as I know, you can't buy one of these inside of a dealership. Maybe there's a couple selling, but most of these are gonna be bought directly from the manufacturer or sold online, which is how I think the future of motorcycle selling will actually be. Why is it that I can't buy a motorcycle on a Monday? Because for some reason all dealerships are closed. Or why do I have to go through that salesman to buy a motorcycle when I know which one I want? chances are I know more about the motorcycle than he does. I know which one I want. I just want to buy it and not have to deal with anyone. We can buy cars that way. We can buy computers that way. I think you can buy houses and land that way. Why is motorcycles the last thing that I have to go through a dealership to buy? So I do think this is how motorcycle sales will be done in the future. And these guys are setting an example of it. Now, about 4 years ago, my team and I, we bought 2 container loads of the earlier model of this. I think we got like 50 of them. I did that because I wanted to give you guys the option for a reliable, inexpensive, and cool looking way to get into riding and skip the dealership entirely. And those 50 bikes, actually, to my surprise, they went pretty quick. It was a couple weeks before they were all gone. So we decided to do it again. I talked to the guys over at LaFawn, and they said we were able to get this bike to you guys to your door, so free shipping, for $34.99, which I was like, that is cheap. Part of it is it's cheaper because these are 25 models, and they came in before the tariffs. So once the new models came in, they're probably gonna be a little more expensive, maybe a lot more expensive. There's a couple of these left. If they're still on the website, go to bikesandbeardsgear.com, go to the link below if you're interested in this. Go to the website and see if we have any more left. We have 2 colors. We got this color and the black. I was also able to get them to give us a 2-year unlimited mile parts warranty. That's just for Bikes and Beards and Srkcycles viewers. So if this is something you're interested in, I think it's a great, fun bike to ride. I think it's very inexpensive. And this is cheaper than a Grom. If you look at a Grom price, I think it's like $2,500 or something like that. Once you walk out the door, call a dealership and be like, hey, what's that out the door? It's probably gonna be around $5 grand. A lot of extra fees and all that stuff. This is $3,500, $34.99 shipped to your door. Then you register it and you're gonna pay your taxes like a normal vehicle. So if you're interested, don't hesitate. Not sure how many we have left, but we do have a couple left. Let's go take it for a spin. I'm gonna show you guys how this thing actually runs, and then you can make your decision. Let's hear it fire up. Check this out. Here's the little gauge. We got over 300 miles on it. So it's got the gauge right here. These buttons and levers, it's pretty clean. This is like kind of like what you'd see on a Suzuki or a lot of Japanese bikes. This, I think it's to mount like a GPS or a phone mount or something. I think it's cool. This is your gauge down here. Also, we did a road trip with this on the Bikes and Beards channel where I put this thing together and then I'd road trip it home. So it claims like 83 miles to the gallon. I didn't actually test it, but I did a lot of miles with pretty much no gasoline. So if you want to know how it shows up, go watch that video. I'll put the link in the description below. But it shows up without the mirrors on, the front tires off, in a crate. I was able to put it together in maybe an hour 15 by myself. If you had a friend to help you out, you could probably do it in 45 minutes. But let's fire it up. It's a cable clutch, but it's a really, really light clutch. So let's go take it for a spin. Show you guys what this thing can do on the road. That's a smooth feeling bike though. All right guys, before we go riding, this is the Bible verse. Proverbs 12:22. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who act faithfully are his delight. Ups in gear nice and easy. Light clutch. Now there is a gear indicator, but it's not really, it's not super useful because you gotta move your whole head from looking at the road to looking straight down. And what I really like for an entry-level bike, I want people to be able to make mistakes. And when I talk about mistakes, I'm talking like too much throttle. That's all the throttle it's got. It didn't wheelie, it didn't spin out, it didn't lube out. You can, it's kind of like the Miata of motorcycles, where you can do awesome stuff with it if you know what you're doing. But if you don't know what you're doing, you'd be like, it's kind of slow. Like that's all it's got. Which is super fun. I'm doing the speed limit. So it's not, in terms of motorcycles, is it fast? No, it's not fast. Shoot, in terms of motorcycles, that there's people who would say that BMW is slow. And I bet you that BMW does 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, but motorcycles are fast. So, but in terms of it being really, really fun, yes. This thing definitely hits the fun aspect. So I'm going to show you guys right now. And then maybe we'll do a 0 to 60 run. Alright, I'm going to launch it up here. Let's give it all she's got. First gear. Not bad. 60. Not bad. Like I said, if you were teaching your son how to ride, if you were like you had a 15, 16-year-old son, and you're like, hey son, it's time for you to get a motorcycle. This would be a bike that you could be like, he's not gonna kill himself going 120 miles an hour. You can confidently say that. But I also have a really fun time riding it. And with gas prices they are right now, 83 miles to the gallon, it's pretty exciting. Normally, when you justify buying a vehicle just to save gas, it doesn't make any sense. Because the cost, the amount of money you spend, you know, if you're like, well, I'm going to buy this Tesla to save money on gas. Well, you just spent the gas bill for the next 12 years on that Tesla. So that means that Tesla's got to save you money, not cost you any money for 12 years. It doesn't make any sense. But if you're like, you know what, baby, gas is getting pretty expensive these days. Your break even on something this cheap, if you drive a big diesel truck, your break even on something like this could possibly be 6 months, depending on how much you drive. And this thing has a 2-year warranty, so that's, come on. Now, a lot of times when you're looking at bikes, cheap, little, inexpensive, small bikes, they top out at 50. And you're like, well, I can't even jump on it. I can't even go from a highway exit to highway exit. You know, my commute has to jump on the highway even for a little bit. I've cruised on the highway for 60, 70 miles on one of these bikes. Keeping up with traffic. It's not, well, keeping up with traffic depending on where you're at. Sometimes people are going, way too fast. According to my grandma, people go way too fast on the highway. Another cool thing about the bike is the simplicity of it. It's very simple. At most, it might have ABS. That's it. It's got no traction control. It doesn't need traction control. It doesn't need it because it doesn't have enough power. All right, we'll stop up here. I'll show you how we're gonna check. We're just gonna turn the bike off. ABS. And then that light should flash. until we start going fast enough. Wait. Look at that, look at that. 0 to 30 in that many seconds. Amazing. So, LaFon has had a really good track record of making bikes and selling engines and things like that in third world countries for a very long time. It is the engine of choice for a lot of those manufacturers. And then they started making bikes, and then they started making bikes that look pretty decent. So guys, if you're interested in buying one of these, go to bikesandbeertogear.com. Go check out the link below. Click the QR code. We'll see you guys next time. Remember, it is not what you're riding, but where you're going.